Welcome to the What If Podcast right here on YouTube. Tonight, it's just me and Jacob and I, however you say that.
Just the Hutchison boys.
The Hutchison boys right there.
Boom, there it is. I'm digging
right
the
there.
background. It's like you're a stand-up comedian or something.
I know it. And let me give you a little bit of background, no pun intended on this. Everything that I tried to put up that said what if or anything, my camera just sucked up the light. It was just so bright. This is really a dark wall.
Really?
Yeah. I even tried to put the words what if on it, and it just for some reason sucks up every bit of light. And so that's the darkest thing anyway. It's cold outside, and I didn't want to go out in the garage.
That's very smart. You know, there's this new trend of painting ceilings black. All right. I don't know if it's actually a new trend or not.
You put little stars up there and everything?
Maybe that's what I was thinking. But, you know, on TikTok, man, maybe we'll mess around with some of the paint on the walls.
Maybe. It could be
studio.
something.
That's perfect.
Anyway, I'm Derek Hutchison. That's Jacob Hutchison. We are the What If Project. Again, missing Zach tonight. My grandchildren are sick. And Zachary is taking care of them. So although we watched them today, and I got to be honest, they didn't seem that sick.
They saved all of their sickness. I think Zach is just still pouting from 2 weeks ago.
He could be. There could be an aversion to coming on. And so we're just going to go forward without him. Again, we are the What If Project. You can find us at believeinthewhatif.webnode.com. Again, if you like this podcast, click that subscribe button, hit the little like bell or like button, click that notification bell so that anytime we come on, you will know that we are doing a podcast. You can email us.
You can be on too.
That's right. You can join our Patreon, help us in all the projects that we do with the What If Project, not only the podcast, but the website. We go out and do presentations to churches. We go out and do presentations to schools and encourage kids to make good choices. So if you want to become a part of that, just go to our website, believeinthewhatif.webnode.com, hit the little Patreon button, and it'll take you right there. You can become a monthly subscriber to the What If Project, get all kind of goody things. But I want to start out with this. We're going to do this backwards. Usually we start out, Jake, with what's been inspiring you this week.
Right.
And that's what the What If Project podcast is about. It is about being inspired, being motivated to change. I want to share with you something that's on. If you go to believeinthewhatif.webnode.com, you will and click the little buttons around there, you will find a section, which is basically just a blog that I do that hopefully inspires and encourages, called The Janitor's Closet. I used to be a custodian at an elementary school, and I'm writing about some of the things that I've seen. And so I try and write things that I saw while I was there that are hopefully inspiring and motivating and maybe just gives you an idea to think about. And so I wanted to share that and then talk with you just a little bit about the subject matter. And then we'll come full circle back around to what's inspiring, because I love it. I really want to I really want to talk about what's been inspiring. But I'm going to read the latest post, and it is called The case of the stopped up toilet, or know when to say no.
Ooh, I like the hyphenated or colon, however you wrote it, title. That's
Yes.
the best movies. It's like,
Yes. So this is
yeah,
what
that's Oscar word. That's Oscar bait right there.
it says. It was just another day in the life of a janitor. The walkie-talkie on my belt squawked to life, interrupting my mid-afternoon rendezvous with the cafeteria floor. Mr. Derek, the voice from the other side said in a somewhat jovial tone. This always gave me a moment of pause because I knew instinctively that it meant I was needed in a part of the building I didn't want to go to because I had to do something I surely didn't want to do. There was no doubt in my mind that the jolly voice was about to direct me on a PVB mission. It's a mission that brings joy to secretaries, at least mine, and sheer dread to some teachers, at least mine. A PVB mission can mean only one of three things: poop, vomit, or blood. None of these three expulsions are a welcomed guest in the daily life of a janitor. Expected, yes. Welcomed, no. And in the moment it took my secretary to respond back from my radio acknowledgement, a thought popped into my head. I'm not proud of the thought, but I think any janitor would agree that they have had the same thought. Having a deep sense that this was indeed going to be a PVB mission, I whispered softly, and I pray inaudibly under my breath, God, I hope it's blood. No luck was to be found that day for me, however. A toilet in the boys' bathroom is overflowing, the voice said through the static of the radio. Of course it is, I responded. So with a saddened heart and a twinge of trepidation, I said goodbye to the cafeteria floor, gathered my mop, bucket, plunger, and toilet snake, and made my way towards the unspeakable horror that awaited me. Overflowing toilets are a staple in an elementary school. Small children are known for their voracious fiber intake, or at least that's what I blamed this odd toilet belching phenomenon on. Usually the process of remedying the problem was simple and straightforward, much like a toilet clearing flow chart, if you will. Plunge it, flush it. No flush, repeat. No flush, snake it, flush it. If by then there was still no relief to the blockage, you had to deep snake it. And sadly, I have to report that this particular mission was a deep snake. So I set myself to the task. Crank, crank, crank. The snake drilled its way further and further into the bowels of the school, no pun intended. Just as I was about to reach the end of my snake, I felt something catch. Gotcha, I exclaimed as a victorious echo resonated through the bathroom. The retracting of the snake is always the fun part of this type of mission, if there is a fun part. Primarily due to the fact that the anticipation of what might be on the end of that snake is almost unbearable as it makes its way towards the surface and the light of day. I've seen many things come out of the toilets of my elementary school: shoes, combs, even homework assignments. Item after item sent down the plumbing, hoping to never be seen again, as if it were being sent to Davy Jones's locker or Harry Potter's room of requirement. This time the culprit was a pair of underwear. That's right, underwear. Come up with your own story of how this pair of beefy Hanes got stuck in the pipes. Anything the mind could imagine could be way off base or right on point. Nevertheless, the mission was accomplished. I share this story because I believe it illustrates, perhaps in an odd way, something that all of us, especially teachers, are guilty of: shoving a bunch of stuff in a place it doesn't fit. Or to put it another way, not being able to say no. Teachers do it, volunteers do it, pastors do it, heck, we all do it. At some point in most people's lives, we fall into a habit of taking on more than we can handle. Maybe it's because we don't want others to be angry with us. Maybe it's because we truly want to help. Maybe it's because we want to be included in everything. What do they call that now? FOMO? The fear of missing out? Yeah, maybe that's it. But for whatever reason we do it, one thing is true, it's not good for us. Saying yes to too many things causes a backlog in our schedule, a backup in our emotional capital, and a burnout of our energy supplies. Saying yes to everything becomes the underwear in our plumbing. It causes chaos in our lives and, quite frankly, makes crap go everywhere. It's a mess made by our own doing. I want to encourage you to practice some no's in the upcoming week. Don't flatly refuse every request. Rather, measure each response with this question: is this request going to overflow my toilet? It's crass, sure, but it's an appropriate question. What things in your life are causing your toilet to overflow? What commitments have you made that need to be snaked out in order for you to regain an even flow in your life? No doesn't mean you don't like me. It just means that you like you better. No doesn't mean you get left out. It means you get to be a part of the things that you enjoy the most. I'll tell you what, if you have trouble saying the word no, the next time someone asks you something or asks something of you that you are sure is going to overload your system, you just say, I'm sorry, I just can't put another pair of underwear in my toilet. And that should do the trick. That is my blog.
Love it.
So I wanted to talk about that just a little bit because I think that is a problem. Knowing when to say no.
Yeah, I don't want to derail any questions you have. Anytime somebody writes something like that, like, you always think of, okay, what's the inspiration? Obviously, the inspiration is that experience, but it had to have been closer to what's happening now. You know what I mean? So like,
Sure.
What are you, that's just what I'm curious about. What are you having trouble saying no to?
I'm not sure that that it has anything to do with me at this particular time. Definitely early on in my life, it was absolutely me. As a pastor, as a janitor, basically as anything, was this inability to say no that caused this huge backlog of anxiety and guilt and a feeling of inadequacy when you couldn't come through on what you had said yes to.
Right.
I was very guilty of it.
I'm sure as a pastor too, there's this idea, and we've talked with pastors on the show, and we've, talked about being a pastor, and we don't have to get into that, but just being somebody who is in charge of other people in a way, and who is tasked to shepherd people, and there are all kinds of shepherds in the world, I guess, but a pastor is a very literal one, I guess. But how there's more pressure on you to be able to come through and like have an answer,
right,
and how that lends itself to people not wanting to say no. And because if I don't say no, or if I don't say yes, then you will come to ruin. Of course, that's what,
And I'm sure there's all kinds of psychology that goes on with that idea of people who say no. I've read it, I've seen it, I've looked it up, I've studied it. That a whole idea of, if you were brought up as a child of a demanding parent, and if you were brought up as a child, I mean, they list just about everything that you can't get away from. Basically, if you were brought up as a child. But there are some people who have some real trouble saying no. And I'm wondering, of the things that I listed, I'm sure are part of it, that whole idea of not wanting to disappoint, not wanting to miss out, and just that whole idea of I'm incapable of saying no, and then finding out later wondering, this is why is my life so hectic? Why do I have so much anxiety? And it was funny because I was going to go another direction with it. I really was just going to tell a funny story.
Yeah.
And then I was forced to think about some of the things that I'd seen as a janitor, that I know of teachers, that I know of people. And I stopped and thought, this is a case of life getting stopped up. And he can go further than just this no part. You could just take it and say, what's the underwear in my toilet that is causing crap to go everywhere in my life? What is it
Yeah.
that is stopping up the even flow? And I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah. There's a good, healthy.
If you notice that there's crap going everywhere, if you're wondering why there's crap on the floor and water
Right.
going everywhere in your
Like
life,
everything is crap. What's
yeah,
that? It's
yeah,
coming from somewhere.
yeah, it
You
is.
know,
It's coming from
it's
somewhere.
coming from somewhere. The crap is not
I mean,
natural. It's not in your natural state to have crap in the
on the floor,
being,
on the floor of
floor,
your life.
wherever.
And the great thing about
That's
this
a good
story
point.
is it could apply to so many other things. What things are you pushing too far down? What things are? I mean, it's a great story. This is a multi-applicable story in your life, but it all stems around the whole idea of shoving things places they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And don't we all do that?
Yeah.
Don't we all do that? So that's my story. If you want to read more about what comes out of the janitor's closet,
Oh, there's good stuff, man.
again,
It's
you can
good.
go to believeinthewhatif.webnode. That's WEBNODE.com. I'll put it down in the description, or down in the link. I'll put a link down in the description below, and you can pop up there and see some of the other great and awesome things that I saw through my eyes as I peered out the window of the janitor's closet. My time as a custodian in an elementary school. Again, believeinthewhatif.webnode.com. This takes me to really what I want to talk about today. Again, on this show, we talk about inspiration. We talk about things that motivate us to change. I've started, I'll start with you first. And what's inspired you this week, Jake? Anything you've been inspired this week?
My inspirations are always, I think it's funny because when Zach's on the show, we have a really good balance of because Zach always is it's not inspiration unless I am actively changing.
If I'm
And
not,
that's
it doesn't motivate me to do something different
to
make
change and
myself
change my
better.
life. And that's totally okay. And for me, I'm totally opposite. I'm I was so inspired. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it was just really cool. It was a beautiful moment. I don't know what's happening with it, but it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I really tried to think about that this week of okay, I'm inspired, because it does, we talked about it. Inspiration can, but doesn't have to mean, I drop everything and have to
Exactly
change my life.
Right.
But I try to think about it since I'm on the other end of the spectrum. And so the thing that inspired me and was very beautiful, I was working with a patient in the dementia unit. And, obviously there are all kinds of things that can happen with you emotionally when you have dementia, right? And I was working with this really sweet woman, and she has a tendency to talk about what she did with her family. So she ran a restaurant, right? And so she really kind of goes back to that. That's her kind of thing that she holds on to, is talking about the times in this restaurant. And so we talk a lot about that with her. And we're doing our therapy, and she kind of stops, and she because she's talking about her family and her running this restaurant with her family. And she stops, and this woman is, I believe, in her 80s. Okay. She's in her 80s. And she starts to cry, which is not uncommon for people with later stage dementia. Sure. And so, I say, "Oh, what's wrong?" And she just says, "I just really miss my grandmother." And obviously there's this disease, which degrades your brain tissue and your, and all of that. and we can talk about that, why, you know, there's a scientific reason why this person was sad and
Sure.
thinking about these things. But I don't care about that.
Right.
I like to look at the
Right.
spiritual and the emotional, the big, beautiful, universal kind of truths that you get to see, I guess, at the risk of sounding too pretentious, but whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, this 80 some year old woman being brought to tears because she misses her grandmother, who has probably been gone for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just started thinking, like, about other people who had dementia there, and how often I hear about those, and people who are very, very close to the end of their life. And what do they talk about? They talk about, I want my mom.
Yeah.
I want to
I
see
miss
my
my
father.
mom.
Know, these like, how the deepest connections for us are our family.
Mhm.
And that's not a big universal truth that, you know, no one knows. That's a very known thing, but it just got me thinking of, like, how beautiful that bond is, and really how deep that is, even though we don't know that lasts longer than the disease that destroys your brain. Like, that
Right.
lasts longer than that's the longest lasting thing
Yeah.
for some people. That's the last thing they think about before they pass away. Right.
The love of family is the last brain cell to die.
It's the last thing.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that, and thinking about, what am I going to do with that, of just thinking about the family that I want to have in the future, and the family I already have, which is going to, you know, get bigger, hopefully,
Yeah.
in the future, and just thinking, how to continue to cultivate that, and to not take it for granted. You're
Lost my little thing there. Hold on. Oh my.
No, that's okay. That was beautiful. That was like the perfect timing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I gotta go over here real quick. Keep talking.
Oh no, you're good.
I don't want that big giant. Let me just.
That's wonderful. That's a sign right there, baby.
Yeah, that is. See how that just. That was
Boom.
blue.
Screen.
That was blue, and it was just totally white.
And how obviously that's important, and people will say family is important, but to never take for granted how important that is, and how I want that to be a deep foundation to continue in my life. And if I'm gonna try to teach anything, I want to try to teach that, and be about that, right? At least that's one of those pillars that I want. That just reminded me of
That's
that.
an awesome inspirational moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one that fits in Zach's criteria, that one that motivates you to change or think or do something.
And I really did, in that moment. I was like, oh, this is the thing I'm going to talk about. But then I stopped, and I was like, I could just say, this was just so cool. I thought it was beautiful. And so thanks, Zach.
Yeah.
For changing how I think. If he inspired anybody, he inspired your boy.
There you go. It's mine. I got to be honest. I've decided, we weren't on last week.
I was going to say, that's a big thing you can mention.
I had sinus surgery. That was a huge deal for me. Had some polyps. One of them was about the size of a 50-cent piece. So obviously,
that means that there was a thing in your sinuses the size of a silver dollar that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yes.
That's so wild.
Silver dollar, man. Yeah, it was big. And you could tell because I couldn't breathe. I had to breathe through my mouth. Now it's out. Got the nice breath going. Still haven't got the taste back or the smell back, but it's slowly coming back. But I thought, okay. So I really sat down and I thought, I want to make some changes. I hadn't defined them.
Right.
You ever get that way? You ever feel that way, that you're just like, something's got to change.
Right.
It just got to change. And and what do I need to do to change? I'm the kind of person that needs to be inspired. I've got to be motivated to change. And so in true fashion at night, I start watching some inspirational videos. And some of them are, you're like, wow, I'm never going to get that 8 minutes back.
Womp.
Yeah, never going to get that 8 minutes back. Some of them are just awe-inspiring. The Sylvester Stallone from Rocky Balboa,
Yeah.
talking to his son.
Yeah.
That one's but I came across one, and for some reason, it just hit me. It was just one of those things that it seemed like, and all it is a collage. It's a montage of people speaking, inspiring words, or words that are meant to inspire. And for some reason, this was the only one that every single one was, oh, that's me. Oh, they're talking about me. Oh, I got to do that.
That's what makes anything inspiring, because it cuts to
Yeah.
the core of the truth that you want to have heard, right?
Yeah. And I really like that. I'm one of those things that, I love the sports ones that inspire you. That I'm not the AT&T commercial, talking, that one doesn't, but some, just some things do. And I've played it every single night. I listen to it and I think to myself, what am I going to do to change? And one of the quotes that's in there, we'll talk about. I'm going to play it. I don't know. It's a few minutes long, but it might give you an idea. It's not like 15 minutes long or anything like that. But one of the quotes in there is something I want to talk about. I shared with you before we came on air, was this quote: "Are you willing to sprint when the distance is unknown?" And I want to talk to you about that. Because I ask your mom, and interesting perspective that comes out, and then I'll share my perspective on it. But I just want to share. It's 3 minutes and 38 seconds long. I listen to it every day. I'm hoping that it's making me at least to start to think. And now, if I said I got right out of bed and I'm a changed man, that's a lie. I'm not going to say that. So I'm just going to play it and pick out what you want, and we'll see how it goes.
Love it.
What gets you out of bed? What gets you off the couch? What gets you in the gym? It's not your alarm. It's not your parents. It's not your friends. It's you. The only one that can make it happen for you is you.
It's really hard to be led by your butt. But I'm not qualified. But I'm not good enough. But I'm not smart enough. But I didn't go to the right school. But I don't have enough money. But, if you're ever gonna step into your future, if you're ever gonna step into your destiny, you're gonna have to get over your butt.
And that's what a pity party is when you have an undisciplined mind and you meditate on the wrong thing over and over and over again. If you're going to throw a pity party, I give you 3 days and that's it. And after 3 days, you cut off your record player, your iPod, your MP3, and you come up with a plan.
Do I just sit there and settle? No, I don't. I say enough's enough, man, and I'm gonna make a change, and I'm gonna keep going until I get it. You chase something that you believe you deserve until you get it. And it doesn't matter what happens to you. It doesn't matter how many times you get fired. It doesn't matter how many people don't believe in you. You just go until you get it. That's the point. Are you tired yet? Some of you need to get tired. You need to be tired of what's going on in your life. Get tired of your habits. Get tired of the actions that you're putting in every day. You gotta change, man, or nothing changes.
I woke up one day and stopped making excuses. I woke up one day and stopped playing the blame game. I woke up one day and looked at the man in the mirror and was like, yo, bro, what are you doing? Wake up, it's showtime, let's go. Get up, Go to class. Get up. Do your homework.
You wake up earlier than people. You stay later than people. You stay humble. You work harder than anyone when no one's there. I guarantee someone that feels bad about themselves soon will label you as he's built different. He's built different should be your label because people feel bad about themselves.
You're lighting exactly what you wanted. Because every day, you've had choices to make. You're responsible and credible for every single choice. You've made the choices.
And what I need you to do for me is why are you here? And then take ownership of why you here. So you control you.
This world ain't gonna give you what you deserve. This world gonna give you what you work for. I put that work in every single day. And when you wake up every single day and you put that work in, and yes, for some of us, it might be harder than others. Man, whatever, we do what it is we gotta do. Especially when we're desperate.
Winning's not loyal to you. It doesn't care about you. Winning doesn't care how sore you are. Winning doesn't care how much sleep you get. Winning doesn't care how hard you work at times. Winning requires all of you and then more, and it promises you nothing. It's a mastermind of creating fear and doubt in your mind. It causes setback after setback. So the question is about winning. Are you willing to sprint when the distance is unknown? And why chase this thing called winning? Because the only thing that's guaranteed in life, if you don't chase it, is losing.
Now is the time to grind. Now is the time to show the world that I was placed here for a purpose.
Work for it. Fight for it. It begins today, it continues tomorrow, and it never dies.
So that's what's been inspiring me this last week.
Nice.
That's what I listen to every single night, and then every day that I get up.
I think that's a good journey to go along with other people. Anybody who might watch this is, because we're both trying to be inspired to do whatever, right? To do different things in our lives, and what that took to go seek that out, to even I'm just thinking about, you had to realize that you wanted to change something. You weren't even in, we talk about this pre-contemplation stage, and contemplation and taking action. It's I don't even know what I need to do or not do yet. I just know that something needs to change. And that is a first step. It
really came down to that. It came to the point where you look at it and say, I don't like where I am.
Right.
And,
physically, emotionally, mentally, with anything.
Is a big person that I really love. I would encourage anybody, pick up the Andy Andrews books and read them. But Andy Andrews says that, and I've used that over and over and over again in my life. We are where we are physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, because of the decisions that we make or that we've made. And if we don't want to be where we are physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, the only thing that makes sense is we make different decisions. We make different choices. Excuse me. And I got to the point that I said, I don't like where I'm at. I couldn't pinpoint it for you. I couldn't pick out a specific thing. It was just one of those things of, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I don't like where I'm at.
Right.
And maybe it's one of those things that we go back to, the stuff in the toilet, stuff in the underwear down the toilet, and not being able to say no. Maybe it's the same reasons. Maybe it's the fear of feeling I'm being left behind. Maybe it's the fear of feeling that I haven't accomplished what I think I'm capable of accomplishing. Maybe it's all of those things, but it just really hit me just this past week is, if you can't wait around for something to change, you got to make the change, or you have to be the change. And I needed to get inspired. And so I went looking, and this one, like I said, just hit me. And I was really hit by that quote that said, are you willing to sprint when the distance is unknown?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not willing to sprint when I know the distance sometimes.
Well, and maybe
I don't know if I sprint towards the end of the day, man. Because
that's really what lays it out. Are you will, that whole idea of, I don't know when I'm going to get there. I may not even know where I'm going. I may not know how long it's going to take me. I may not know how hard it's going to be, but I'm willing to work as hard as I can every single day until I get there. To me, that's what that statement means. Am I willing to work as hard as I possibly can without even knowing where I'm going or how to get there?
Yeah.
One of the things that I was listening to, a guy brought up an interesting, he was answered the question, what do you do when you're broken? And his thing was, I relish the moments that I'm broken, because when I'm broken, I've just learned a limitation. And how am I ever going to stretch those and get past those limitations if I don't know where they're at?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. It's the only one, you know, a lot of them, they're good, and you can
Yeah.
over a day, and, you know, about killing your excuses and no excuses. But this one, for some reason just hit me. And I'm not saying it motivated me to change, but it motivated me to think about what needs to change.
Yeah. I think
I
that's,
don't know if there's a difference.
no, I think there is, but I think it's important to say like that is just like that's on the journey of that change, right? So like
Sure.
that is just as valuable as any other point, because without that you can't continue, you know.
And this video may not
Can even
inspire,
start.
inspire anybody else. You could just watch it and say, oh,
Yeah.
that's just a bunch of platitudes.
Yeah,
It was-
but it did for you because it spoke to something that was true in your life and in your world.
Yeah.
And
And
so I think that's a cool thing, you know, and maybe we can unpack that to any degree that you want, Dad. You know, what you touched on a little bit, but I guess what truth did you feel like it touched on the most for you?
I think one of the truths was that there are a number of things in my life that I'm not settled on.
Right. That I had, right. That there's the score isn't settled.
Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah.
You know, I'm a Steela.
That you would like, I like the idea of
I'm a
like
Steeler.
that you would have another say in, you know?
Yes, I'm gonna steal Black Widow's line. I've got red in my ledger,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to even the score. Yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to delineate between the fact of the idea of, or trying to discern between, am I not happy where I'm at, or am I unhappy that I'm not at another point? I don't know if those
Right.
are synonymous. I don't know if those are just a play on words. But there were some things that I looked at, and then having to look at them and ask that question of why. And that video touches on it, that idea.
Right.
Am I unwilling to take ownership of I am where I am because of choices that I've made?
Right. And yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt that. Yeah, I think it's important to delineate between what you're saying and maybe like the idea of, you know, I am at a place, you know, the difference between I'm discontent because like I didn't get what I want, or I'm discontent because I haven't tried to get it.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
I haven't tried to,
And
I haven't even tried and failed, or maybe I have stopped trying. You know what I mean? You know, I don't know. I think that's important because discontentment is a huge
right.
thing that goes around. Everybody's discontent in something. And it's like, we don't want to encourage people to be discontent, but also we don't want to be encouraged, you know, anybody to sit in something that they could, you know, try to, you know, attempt to change. Right.
Yeah. And mine is definitely the latter, not being discontent You know, and I think it's important that, and I think everybody would agree that goes through this, which I think is everybody at some point in time in their lives. You know, it used to be called midlife crisis. You know, it used to be called all
More
these.
and more people are having quarter life crises.
Yeah, yeah. It's not the idea that you're discontent or you're upset or saddened about everything in your life.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's some things you want to settle the score with, right?
and there's just things that I look at and I say, in some areas of my life, I have the potential to be more than I am right now.
Right. And I would like a say in that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I would like, yeah, exactly. And I would like a
Yeah.
say in that. I would like, and then because it sends you on this intellectual journey of discovery, of contemplation, of regret, anxiety, disappointment, you know, all of those things. But it does send you on this journey that says, if I am that, which I just said, then why? And how much ownership do I have of that?
Right.
And then how can I change it? And, you know, you can keep going on and on and on and on to the point of kind of, excuse me, being overwhelmed, not being able to answer. If you don't like who you are, then who do you want to be? You know, and if you do know who you want to be, are you willing to sprint when the distance is unknown? Are you willing to put, what will it take to get there? And are you willing to do that? I talk about this a lot. I've probably even brought this up on countless podcasts, maybe. I think I might have brought it up. I was privileged enough to be on Patty Sheen's podcast. So there's a little plug there for Step Into the Light. If you go to believeinthewhatif.webnode.com and go to the church section, you'll be able to find that podcast. But I think I mentioned this. It was a while back when I was in Woodland Park, and I had a good friend named Dave Ewer. And we had Bible studies together, and we were talking about just this whole idea of being content with where you are. And I was always saying, you know, I'm never content. I wish, you know, I expected more of myself. I expected to be not here at this age. And we were talking about what, you know, have you asked what God's plan is for you? And he asked me this question that has haunted me to this day. And the question was this: what if the only thing God truly has called you to be is just a good grandfather? That's the question that he asked me. And my first response, just off the cuff, was, then that's not enough. You know, the audacity.
Yeah, which is a very raw and very real response. I'm sure a lot of people can
so
relate to.
There is this struggle with my faith, or either this clicking of your faith.
Yeah.
That says, I'm trying to figure out what God wants me to do and temper it with what I want to do. And how do those things match? And if they don't, who gives in first? You know,
right.
that type of thing, because the question always begs, then what if God's really just calling me to be something that's just lame? You know what I'm saying? And so all of these things are going around in my head at this particular time as I'm watching this video. And so it's just been this week of introspection and struggle, because, you know, I think we would all agree, you know, they don't just come like that.
Yeah.
Answers just don't.
I think and thanks so much for sharing that, Dad. And this has been something that's been going on for a long time and has evolved, and we've talked about it a ton, and as our feelings have changed and things like that. And I love that you can share that with me and with everybody else too. And I think, I don't know if it would be helpful in any way, but I think anybody who can relate to that, which is probably a lot of people, you know, and they just think, okay, what out of all that, taking all of that into consideration, which is a lot of stuff, what is your immediate next thing? And not to put it in a thing of like, there's got to be this schedule thing, but like, what is it? Even if it's right or wrong, like, what is your next thing, taking in all of that? And what do you think?
And again, I'll harken back to Andy Andrews' idea of what do you do when you don't know what to do? And it's a very counterintuitive thing. It's something that makes you scratch your head and you have to think about it for a minute. And it's this: imagine for a moment that if you're in a spot that you don't know what your next step is, you don't know what to do, ask yourself, if I did know what to do, what would I do? I mean, and I know that everybody who hears that says, that makes no sense to me. If I did know what to do, I would do it. I don't know what to do. How do I bridge that gap? But just asking the question begs you to think a little bit more. If I did know what to do, what would I do? Well, I do that. Well, okay, then do that. Well, what is it? Well, I don't know. I got to think about that. Well, if I didn't know what to do in my particular spot right in life, I would pray about it. I would, you know.
So I get what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is, you know, on your journey of being inspired to taking some serious, to being in the middle of like taking your steps in the middle of your change, right? You know, you're on the step of asking yourself, what if I did know what to do?
What if I did know? What would I do? And even more of a question.
You're on the field, dude. That's awesome.
Even
you're playing the game.
Is to be honest with myself and said, if I did know what to do, would I actually do it?
Would I actually do it? Which is still playing the game.
Yeah, that's the big question for me. If I did know what to do, if the way was clear, if the purpose was known, would I still do it? Would I sprint? And this is to the point of, would I even sprint if I knew what the distance?
I don't.
And so it's, I think I'm the type of person. I think my first step on these things because I really thought it was interesting because of Zach and what we talk about is to really try and bridge that gap and answer the question is, how do you go from inspiration to motivation to change? Inspiration doesn't automatically mean you're changed. Inspiration doesn't automatically mean you're motivated to change. But what are the steps, some of the steps that are involved in that,
right,
to get you to a point of inspiration? I'm motivated to change, and now I'm changing. So for me, it's a lot of information gathering. It's asking myself questions of really that somewhat what you think to be an easy question, but is definitely a difficult question. If you don't like where you are, where do you want to be?
Right. And well, that goes into what goals and how you change, you know.
Yeah.
If I'm implementing something that isn't gonna get me to where I want to be, then I have to backtrack and go back to that question and you know. And so that to me, that seems like really hopeful, even though it probably in the midst of it, it's very confusing and, you know, and frustrating because, you know, you're by taking that initiative saying I'm inspired and now I'm gathering, I'm asking myself questions, I'm figuring this out. Now I'm in the game.
Yeah.
right? Like you're in the game. You're not scoring the touchdown right now, but you're in the game. You're in the process of it.
And I'm secretly then,
That's great.
and I think effectively bringing it full circle to say this. I don't have time nor energy, nor a want to involve things in my life that don't gear me towards the change that I want to see. In other words,
Right.
I don't have the I don't have the time or energy or want to shove more underwear down my toilet.
Right. Which
I mean,
is
That's the circle.
so
which-
good.
the things that if it doesn't get me to where I need to be, or then I don't need it in my life. Now, if it
Right.
doesn't affect that, then hey, that's great. I'm not saying say no. I'm not saying say no to everything. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put everything through this strainer of inspiration that says, does it fit in this goal? I'm just saying those things in my life that keep me away from or diverted away from or distracted from getting to the place that I want to be. I need to get those things out of my daily routine, my daily thinking, those types of things. Anyway, that's my thought process right now. It might be a bunch of garbly-goo.
That sounds like a step on the continuum, and that's very good. And anybody who is right there in the thick of it with you, Dad, I don't know. I just to me that's hopeful. Even though it, like I said, it doesn't seem like it's like, oh, but I'm not. I didn't do those things. I didn't do anything. It's like, no, you decided what you needed to do. You know,
and I have
even in a small way
have come to one solid point in my thinking, one anchor point, you may call it. It may not be a foundational point, it may not be the cornerstone, but it's definitely something that I know that I have to take on to myself and to realize. And I've been saying this to myself every day that I wake up, every time I go in at night to take my medicine that I have to take to sleep for my restless leg. I look in the mirror and I've been saying it to myself, as embarrassing as that might be, maybe you could try it, is this: my hope for the future has to outweigh my grief of the past. That I know. It just has to. I've grabbed on to that. And whether that's a step, whether that's a necessity, whether that's a hinge point, whatever you want to call it, if that's a brick in the golden road towards success, at some point in time, that has to happen. I have to now, we do a whole nother podcast on how that happens. But that has to happen. And so I'm starting with that. That's my first little block in my Jenga, man. Bang, right there.
you're in the game. You're in the game, my friend.
Anyway, those are my thoughts for today. I talked a lot. You listened a lot. I apologize about that.
That's how it goes on here. I mean, look at 2 weeks ago. I talked a lot, and
And so
that's the whole process. Is you involve people that you want to involve, your family and people that you love, in your process of being inspired to changing your life.
Yeah.
And it's an honor.
And so we'll keep you updated on that, and would encourage anybody else. You can email us at Believe in the What If, BELIEVE, believe, right? I before E. That's right.
Yeah, baby. Spell that out.
LIVE in the What If, all one word, at gmail.com. email us or mention it down in the comments below. What are you struggling with? What helps you? What's encouraged you on your walk? And maybe it'll help us. We'll check that out. So next week, Jake, it's your call, man. You've got the ball on the next week. So
yeah, baby.
you're going to guide the inspiration thing. We're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Sounds good.
So wherever you want to go. We've just got a few minutes left. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what did you think of the Buffalo Kansas City game?
Oh man, it was so good, but it didn't end how I wanted it to end. Which
It
is a
did
bummer.
not end, but man,
Very fun game. Very
that
fun game.
Would you change the overtime rules, which is what everybody's trying?
No, because we changed it. We already changed it.
It's not like they just told it to them when they walked out the field. Everybody knows what happens.
No, it's the reason why they lost is because Buffalo got gassed, man, and because Kansas City's good. You know, like
You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And
yeah,
didn't have
we already changed it once with the field goal thing. I think that's fair, but you score a touchdown, it's over.
good game. Yeah, it was a fun game. All those games have been fantastic.
Very inspirational
Very
to up and coming
inspirational.
football players. I bet.
Absolutely, the young breed's coming up. So next week we'll see you on the What If podcast. Jake's going to lead it. We'll talk about whatever he wants to talk about, whatever
Got it.
is inspiring him, and whatever we want to talk about. I did see that we're going to be picking a new Supreme Court justice. That's exciting. Justice Breyer is retiring.
Oh, I did not see that.
He is
Wow.
retiring, and so President Biden's going to be. It seems as if it's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be young African American woman, because
Could be.
that's who he said he was going to. So
There you go. That's news to me right now. That's wild.
a list of the potentials, and they all look good. I mean, they don't share the same politics I do, but from what I can see, these are some hot and young upcoming people in the judicial system, and it'll be exciting to see who our new Supreme Court justice is. And because the people who are getting put on there now are sitting there for a long time.
For a long time, baby.
Long time. So we
That's
had
also inspirational to people.
we had the run of what you would call conservative justices, and now I think a new young liberal lion is going to be coming on the scene.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting. That's to be. I mean, even though the conservatives have the majority right now, it's we've seen that. Who writes that incredible dissent? All of those things. So that's exciting in our nation's history. It's always exciting when we get a new Supreme Court justice. So we hope to see you next Wednesday, right here on the What If podcast. Again, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, get that
Do
YouTube.
it. Talk with us. See what inspires you. We'd love to hear it.
We got to get that YouTube algorithm. If you would like to be a part of the What If project, you can go to our Patreon. You can help us. You become a partner in all the things that we are trying to do. I'll be speaking at a couple of schools. That's in the work right now. We've got a couple more schools that are, and hopefully doing a couple things with some churches here in the near future. So if you like what you hear on the What If podcast, go to that Patreon page. Just go to Patreon, right on our website, believeinthewhatif.webnode.com. So for Jacob, for myself, for Zach, who hopefully is taking care of my granddaughters who are listening to the What If podcast, and encourage you to be inspired or look for inspiration every day as we motivate ourselves to change our lives for the better. So we'll see you next week.